If you want to know how to deal with people that are toxic and interrupting you all the time, then stay tuned and don't forget to visit stylesystems.net. So just as I promised on the last video, I said that I was going to do like a part 2. Now, not only how to deal with people and learning about yourself. If you haven't watched that video already, I will leave the link down here in the description box, and also I will leave the video right somewhere over here, right, as the video ends. Alright, so now we're going to move on to how to deal with these toxic people as you're interacting with them and they are, you know, interrupting you all the time. Now, we all know people like that, right? Every time you're saying you're telling a story, you're saying something, you're introducing yourself or whatever, and they're always interrupting you, and they are very, very, very rude, and it's just disrespecting, and they're very, you know, hard to deal with. So I'm gonna give you a list of 5 steps so that you know how to deal with this type of people, all right? Exactly what to do when they're interrupting you, okay, my friends? So you have to understand that this type of people that are very selfish, right? They're only thinking about themselves. They're also toxic, just like on the last video that I explained. They're very toxic because they don't realize that when they're doing that, when they're being selfish, they are hurting those around them. They are doing it, they're interrupting, and they are doing them with everyone around them. It's not only about you, right? Just like I said on the other video, don't take it personally, because they're not doing it only with you. They're doing it with just about everyone that they interact with. Why? Because they feel 9 out of 10 times, they'll feel so empty on the inside that they have to prove something all the time, right? Maybe they were bullied, or maybe they're bullies as well, or you know, they have some sort of a hole on the inside. So that's why they think that they have to, you know, prove it. Oh, like, oh, look at me, I'm better than you guys. Oh, look at me, mine is bigger than yours. This is mine. Well, you have 1 car, well, I have 2 cars. You know, these type of people that every time you say, well, you know, I just went to a trip to Mexico. Oh, really? I've been there too. By the way, I went to this great restaurant, and you're like, God damn it, they're stealing the spotlight because they feel afraid and alone, and they don't have healthy self-esteem nor confidence. That's why they're just show-offs. So how to deal with them? Step number 1, my friends, is make a long pause when they are interrupting you, and then lower your voice. Lower your voice and keep saying what you were saying, keep telling the story. What this creates, every time you lower your voice, this is a great sales technique, this is a great speech technique, and especially if you are doing public speeches, you know, every time you lower your voice, you make people lean forward to listen to you better, right? Do it. It's gonna work like magic. So you lower your voice, and they're like, so every time you do it, like, I want to tell you a secret so beautiful, and then people are like, you know, you create like expectation, like, oh, really? Tell me about it. So your audience is gonna get more interested in your story rather than the story of the interrupter, of that toxic person, right? Because let's say that you're saying, well, you know, last year I went to Disneyland, you know, it's the first time I went to Disneyland, it's so beautiful. And they're like, oh, really, you went to Disneyland? Well, you know, I went to Disney Park, and I went to California Park, and I went to Disneyland. Oh my God, I have to tell you, there's this one restaurant that I loved, because, you know, I went there with my girlfriend, and all of a sudden it's about them, and you were telling the story. So first thing that you have to understand, everyone is seeing it. Everyone understands that that motherfucker or that person is being disrespectful. Understand that. Knowing how to deal with it is you make a pause. You were telling the story, and you had this voice tone, right, or maybe this level of noise of your voice, right? I know you understand what I'm saying. It's just that sometimes it's so goddamn hard explaining everything that I know in English, because for those that don't know, I'm from Mexico City. That's right. I just do my videos in English because my audience is bigger, and that's it. Anyway, so you're telling your story, you get interrupted, and then, you know, you just make a pause and you look at them. Make visual contact, and you're like that. And you don't even acknowledge that they're telling the story, because if you acknowledge it, you're just giving them more. You're throwing more wood into the fire. They're like, oh, really? Oh my God, that's so good. Oh yeah. If you're nodding as well, you're throwing more cues, non-verbal cues to allow them to continue. So you just stare at them, make a long pause, and you go back to the person that you were talking, or you go back to the story, but lower your voice. So anyway, as I was saying, I was in Disneyland and it was really an experience. So do it, try it, and you'll see how it works. Step number 2, be blunt, be totally straight up with them. If they're interrupting you, if you're telling a story, oh my God, you know, I went to Big Bear this last winter. Man, the experiences that I had there, man. There was this restaurant, I remember, and then they're like, oh really? Well, you know, if you've been to Big Bear, you have to visit it, and boom, they steal your story, right? You have to be direct. So you make a pause and you look at them and you're like, hey, you know, excuse me, but I was telling the story, so I want to know more about what you're saying, but right now, you have to let me finish the story because this is important. So you go back to the people that you were talking, or if you're talking to that person, be straight up. Putting it out there into the open is gonna make them feel uncomfortable. It's gonna make them feel like, oh, now it's on them. You're literally putting it out in the open that they're being mean and rude about it because you're like, hey, you're interrupting me, so don't do it, all right? Point number 3, set up the rules in the conversation, okay? Set up the boundaries in a conversation, like, especially if it's a professional conversation. You know, if you're hanging around your buddies or maybe family members, it's going to be very hard to set up the boundaries and be like, okay, this talk is going to be about this and nothing else. We cannot get distracted by any other topic, all right, my friends? I'm going to talk about video games and that's it. I mean, that's going to be like, dude, what the fuck are you doing, right? But if you're on a professional environment, you have to set up the boundaries, because even I've been to seminars, I've given up my speeches, you know, I'm a public speaker, and there's people that interrupt me because they have a question, and immediately I have to deal with it. And like, hey, the rules were set at the beginning, no questions until I've finished, all right? Or maybe you have a meeting, right, with your team members. You have to say, okay, I know that you want to talk about this and want to talk about that, and maybe you had an experience on this on the weekend, but right now it's just talk about the sales, talk about this, talk about that. We're not going to allow ourselves to get distracted by any other thing. This is what we're going to talk about, right? And you are direct, you set the boundaries. Now they're not going to interrupt you, and if they do, it's on them, and you have to set up the punishment for it, right? Like if you do it, then you get the fuck out of here, or you just do something like that. That's a great technique for you to set up the boundaries, not only on yourself but to others, and exert your power also, because you have a personal power. And when you don't put it into action, you lose it. It's like any muscle, right? If you stop using any muscle, you lose the ability of the growth of that muscle, you know? You don't use the muscle, it'll get destroyed, or, well, not destroyed, but it'll get very weak. If you don't exert your power, if you don't exert this ability that you have within yourself, you know, people will not respect you, and I don't even have to say the rest of it, right? Point number 4. Keep telling your stories and don't let them deviate the conversations. So you're telling the story that you went to Big Bear, you know, maybe you're telling the story that you went to Vegas, and you're saying that maybe you had an awesome experience as you were rolling out the dice, whatever, right? And they interrupt you because they have their own stories. Oh, I remember going to Vegas, man. If you went to that casino, it's not that big of a casino. You should have went to this place, because this place is way better than the one. Oh my God, there we go again, interrupting you. So again, with the pause, you just look at them and they're like, all right, yes. So anyway, as I was saying, that's a continuity phrase, right? You're not acknowledge them. You do not acknowledge what they're saying, and then you say anyway, and you keep saying it. As I was saying. So these phrases, there's a pause, right? You're telling the story like this, boom, there's a stop, and now instead of continuing like this, now you have to begin again. But how do you do it? You use this continuity phrase. Whoop, it's like a bridge that you create to continue the story. And if you get interrupted again, boom, you create another bridge, boom, with a continuity phrase, and then you continue the story. Keep telling your story, don't stop, but use these words, all right? You're like, anyway, as I was saying, blah, 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 blah. This is very great for business tactics, for selling, and for everything, right? Now, the last point that I want to talk about is kind of similar to the one that I explained in the other video, is check your circle. I mean, if you have to deal with them, you have to check your circle. If you're dealing with these people on a daily basis, maybe you want to check your friends. Maybe they're not your friends. Maybe you should avoid them. Maybe you should not be have to deal with them. You should not have this type of people inside of your inner circle. But if they're your profession, if they're family members, then it is a great way of developing these wonderful traits and wonderful characteristics that any human can have or should have, which is tolerance and patience. If you develop patience and tolerance, you will be a much better human being because you will be relaxed. You're gonna understand that you're not gonna take shit personally. You're gonna be like, yeah, whatever. You're not gonna be emotionally attached onto anything or to everything. Sometimes yes, but you don't know how to control it. And if you understand that, most of the people that we admire, they are the people that they know how to excel their power and they know how to control it, and they set up the boundaries. They don't allow others to disrespect them, but they're not like, hey, you just interrupt me, you motherfucker, I'll fuck you up. It's like, dude, you're very emotional, like you're very jumpy, like very nervous, like relax. We tend to admire the people that are very relaxed and they know how to deal with it in a very relaxed way. Like, you're interrupting me and now you have under in your tools certain techniques that you can start applying. So you will start practicing your patience, your tolerance, because life is like that. Not only with people, but sometimes even actions, sometimes even while you're driving on the traffic, especially if you live in LA. It's practicing in tolerance and patience, and that's a great characteristic that you can have, alright? So anyway guys, this is it. Be the best version of yourself. Keep sending me your questions. Leave me your comments and your questions right here on the comment section. Subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to visit stylesystems.net. Be the best version of yourself, and I will see you on the next one.